Well, good morning. Good to be back with you on a rather chilly Ides of March. Oh, see what I did there? How many of you know what the Ides of March are all about? I can't control it. I'll just all of a sudden this stuff just pops into my head. I must have way too much clutter in my brain. Beware the Ides of March. Julius Caesar was told back in the day when Shakespeare wrote his play. Oh, anyway, how are you today? I hope your day's starting off well. It's definitely a chilly March morning, but that's just the way things are going to be for a while. Good morning to Jackie and Leslie and Jack and Jane. And I don't know whether it's Sharon and Danny or just one of you, either one of you, but thank you for taking a minute to stop by. It's good to see all you guys. So we're looking at a very, very interesting passage this morning from Mark chapter 8. And it's one that I think has tremendous application for us today. I mean, we know the scriptures are all relevant and applicable to our lives, but I think this one is even more so than the others for many reasons. So let's look at chapter 8, verses 11 through 21. It says, the Pharisees came out and began to argue with Jesus, seeking from him a sign from heaven to test him. And sighing deeply in his spirit, he said, why does this generation seek for a sign? Truly I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation. And leaving them, he again embarked and went away to the other side. And they, meaning the disciples, had forgotten to take bread and did not have more than one loaf in the boat with them. And Jesus was giving orders to them, saying, watch out, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And they began to discuss with one another the fact that they had no bread. And Jesus, aware of this, said to them, why do you discuss the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet see or understand? Do you have a hardened heart? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many large baskets full of broken pieces you picked up? They said to him, 12. And when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many basketfuls of broken pieces did you pick up? And they said to him, 7. And he was saying to them, do you not yet understand? So yeah, yesterday, as I was telling you, we were talking about this latest food multiplication miracle and how Jesus was so gracious to them, not getting upset or in any way making them feel dumb because they still didn't get it, because they already did this before. But here we see a little bit of his I think frustration over their seemingly inability to comprehend what in the world is going on here. But what we see here as well, which is really what I want to focus on this morning, is this interplay between the Pharisees and Jesus and how he characterizes it. We know the Pharisees were the ruling elite of that day, the religious elite of that day. And here they are coming to Jesus, arguing with him, demanding that he prove who he is by some heavenly sign that would satisfy them, satisfy these Pharisees. And what I really, what I see here so clearly is how there are these very powerful spirits that are at work in the world that are going to try to influence us in negative ways. Now, I titled this broadcast, Don't Drink the Kool-Aid, because many of you may remember a number of years ago, probably it's got to be 40 years plus, that there was a cult where the leader deceived the people into drinking poisoned Kool-Aid because he said that they were going to some, I don't know, outer space thing or whatever. I forget the details. But these people were deceived to the extent that they were willing to drink this Kool-Aid and, suffer the consequences, which in this case was death. And so the phrase, the Kool-Aid, don't drink the Kool-Aid, has become kind of part of our modern day vernacular. And it speaks of this influence of a deceptive spirit on the minds and hearts of people. And so, we see this here in this passage where the Pharisees are trying to control Jesus. They're demanding a sign. They're saying, you've got to do something to prove yourself to us because we're the ones in charge here. Well, guess what? They're not the ones in charge. And so Jesus rightly refuses to play their game. No, I'm not going to do a sign for you guys. I'm doing miracles every day. He could have gone on and basically said, you're clearly blind to what's happening every day, which are multiple signs and miracles and wonders and all these things that, Jesus was doing. But none of that had any effect on them. Why? Because they weren't controlling it. These were not something that they were, initiating and having Jesus do on their behalf. Why? Because they wanted to co-opt him for their side. They wanted Jesus to join them in controlling the religious affairs of Israel. Okay? So when they're now in the boat, Jesus and the disciples are in the boat, and he speaks to them about this and says, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And what is he talking about here? Well, leaven or yeast is a pervasive influence in a lump of dough. You put a tiny little chunk of yeast in freshly made dough, leave it in a, somewhat warm and covered place, and that yeast is going to work its way into the entire lump of dough and cause it to do what? To rise, to change its very character. And, he uses this same analogy to speak of the kingdom in another passage, which we'll get to. But what is he saying here? He's saying that there is this deceptive influence that is deceiving people to have a belief system that is antithetical, opposite, opposing the kingdom of God. And there are two main elements to this deception, to these deceptions. There's two main deceptions, really, that he's talking about, that of the Pharisees and that of Herod. The Pharisees, of course, are representative of the religious spirit. Now, how does that manifest today? What does that look like today? Well, have you ever noticed how in the church there is this desire for us to, in some way, legislate morality? That there are people who want more and more laws passed to force people to stop sinning, to stop doing things that are wrong, to stop doing things that people in the church think that people shouldn't do. Okay? This is a deception that speaks to the desire to control people externally, that believes that you can control people externally, right? By having just multitudes of regulations and rules. I mean, the Israelites were very familiar with this mindset because the Pharisees had taken the basic laws that God had given, through Moses, and multiplied them into thousands of minute little, regulations and rules that covered almost every area of life. And that's the nature of this thing. It wants to control people from the get-go, and to do it through legislation, through laws, through regulations and whatnot. And we see this happening now. I mean, it's all around. It's been all around us. Our federal government has been a prime example of this desire to control people through regulations. But the church really is what this is the focus of here, this religious spirit that wants to try to make people righteous through passing all kinds of laws and regulations that control people's behavior. You can't do that. Righteousness is not something that can be imposed on people externally. It's a matter of the heart. People don't become righteous until their hearts are changed by having a relationship with God, by receiving Christ, by surrendering your life to God and saying, Lord, I can't do this without you. It's no way. I need to be changed. And so the Pharisees, in their attempt to control life through religious, dictates and edicts, this is what the leaven of the Pharisees looks like, right? And so then he talks about the leaven of Herod. What's that? Well, Herod was a Jew who was king in Israel, but here's the problem. Herod, as king of Israel, could be seen as someone in competition with the emperor of Rome, Caesar. All right. So Herod, as a shrewd politician, realizes, I'm going to get killed unless I do something to ingratiate myself, somehow get in, good favor with the Romans and with the emperor, letting him know I'm not a threat. I'm not going to countermand his, whatever he sends out in the way of edicts. I'm going to enforce them for him. I'm going to be his ally. And so what is that? Well, now you're looking at a political spirit that believes that the only way to affect change in the earth is by aligning with the right group of people, and to use the power of that political movement, that group of people who want to accomplish something, standing up for some cause, and through just the sheer magnitude of that number of people and the leaders of that, they're going to make changes in the way things are done. And again, what is that? Well, that's an attempt to control life from an external perspective. And the political spirit happens when the church believes that change can only happen through the government. And you see a lot of Christians are caught up in that. They're believing that the federal government is going to, make changes now because there's a new president. Those that are supporting President Trump, are looking for these major changes to happen and whatnot, that, it's going to create a brand new day for America. I hope things go well. I'm not, taking sides here. I'm simply saying that for the church to align with the political movements of our day robs us of the true power that we wield as citizens of the kingdom of God. And that's what Jesus is talking about here. He's warning his disciples, don't align yourself with either a religious spirit that wants to try to control people through religious rules and regulations, or don't align yourself with those who want to get in with the current powers that are in place politically to try to do the same thing, to try to create the change and control what's happening, in your world. That's not the kingdom of God. Those are earthly kingdoms, earthly rulerships that are actually antichrist. They are substituting for the kingdom over which Jesus is the King of Kings. And so, this is a very sober warning that Jesus gives to the disciples, and of course, by extension to us, that we've got to be aware that if we do that, we are giving up our ability to influence the way the kingdom is supposed to influence. And so I think I'm going to have to deal with that tomorrow so that you can see the contrast more clearly between what Jesus is speaking about here, and what he's really wanting us to understand about the kingdom. So we'll do that. I'm going to hold over one more day or maybe more. We'll see. I never know how far these are going to go, but I hope this starts to get you thinking a little bit about, what's going on around us, how the religious spirit is still trying to legislate morality, how the political spirit is still trying to align the church with political powers as a way to, enact changes in our society. Just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. Again, I'm not, when it comes to the political stuff, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be involved. We shouldn't care about what's happening in our country and in our state, in our local region, but to look to the political process as the sole or major way that we're going to see change happen, that's a lie. That's what Jesus is bringing out here. So we'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow, and let's see where God's going with this, because honestly, the deal is he doesn't want anything to get in the way of our relating to him the way he wants us to, and to really reap the benefits of that relationship, because that's the most important one of all. So be encouraged. Good morning to, let's see who else we've got on with us this morning. There is, hey, Sharon, I'm glad you're with me. Donna, good morning. Faith, how are you? You're still in the hospital. Well, we're praying for a quick recovery. Good morning, Marie. And Kathy, again, you are up late or early, depending on what's going on out there in Hawaii. Lisa, good morning. Joanne, Kevin, how are you, buddy? Let's see. Damien, good to see you as well. Wow. And Donna Dixon, how are you? All right. So thank you again. I appreciate you, spending these few minutes with me, and I look forward to hanging out with you again tomorrow to continue our discussion of this. Hey, be my share bear buddy, if you would please, and share this video, and hopefully some others will catch on and join us. And of course, feel free to reach out if you'd like to chat, or maybe if you think I'm wrong, hit me up and tell me where I'm wrong here. But I'm not scared. I can handle it. But I thank you again and look forward to being with you tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern. And until then, have a great day, and you be blessed.